Welcome, Junior Tukkies. I'm Miss Kutsi, and I'm going to teach you today about the respiratory system. And the respiratory system is also known as the breathing system. So let's quickly have a look at what we will look at when we will be doing the breathing system. So firstly, we are going to look at the main components: the nose, the mouth, the trachea, and other airways, and then also the lungs and the blood, which plays a very important role. Then we will move over to the next section of the notes. So we will look at the main processes of breathing, gas exchange, as well as cellular respiration. And then lastly, we will look at health issues, which includes asthma, lung cancer, and bronchitis. So let's have a look at the components of the breathing system. So firstly, we have the trachea, which is sort of like a C-shaped cartilage pipe. We have the bronchus as well as the bronchioles. Then we will move over to our next section, which is the alveoli. So these are little air sacs, which looks like little grapes on the inside of the lungs. And then we have the diaphragm. Then we also have the intercostal muscles, which we will know as peri-ribs as well. And then we will also have the ribs, which plays an important role in the breathing system. So let's have a look at the functions. So the lungs itself is the main organ of the breathing system. So these are two lungs. We have the left and the right lung. Then we have the mouth and the nose. So the nose is filled with capillaries, and as you inhale air, it heats up the air. So the next structure is the trachea. So the trachea is made out of C-shaped cartilage rings, which keeps the trachea open. So if you do feel and slide your fingers across your trachea in the front of your throat, it is a bit uncomfortable. You will clearly feel the different C-shaped cartilage rings. It's very similar to a swimming pool pipe that's connected to the creepy. Then you also have specialized cells which produces mucus. So the mucus captures dust particles, any other allergens, and also microorganisms. Then it has cells with cilia, which then removes the mucus from the trachea, which prevents the mucus or these bacteria and dust particles to be trapped inside of the trachea. So let's move to the next function of the bronchus. So the bronchus splits in two, which then transports air to the left and the right lung. Then we have the bronchioles, which is smaller versions of the bronchus, which divides into even smaller tubes, which then connects to the alveoli. So they will transport air to the alveoli. The alveoli are the small air sacs on the inside of the lungs, which increases the surface area for gas exchange. So this is where oxygen is exchanged for carbon dioxide. So next we have the diaphragm, which is very important because it's a dome-shaped muscle. It is responsible for inhalation and exhalation. Then we also have the intercostal muscles. So these muscles will also contract during inhalation and also relax during exhalation to increase the size of the thoracic cavity. And then lastly, we will have the ribs. So the ribs are simply there to protect my lungs against any mechanical damage. What is the main purpose of the breathing system? So it's responsible for transporting oxygen to every single body cell, and in return, it transports carbon dioxide towards the lungs. So let's have a look at the main processes of the respiratory system. Is breathing, we have gas exchange, and then lastly, we will have cellular respiration. So we are going to have a look at these main processes as individual processes. So let's have a look at breathing. So this occurs when oxygen is inhaled and carbon dioxide is exhaled during breathing. So there's different steps and different changes which takes place during inhalation and exhalation, which is very important. During inhalation, air will move into the lungs. The diaphragm contracts, it will move downwards, so it flattens. The intercostal muscles will contract to lift up the rib cage and opens up the thoracic cavity, which increases the volume when you inhale. So it's very important. So when you inhale, you will feel your chest lifting up and your thoracic cavity opening up. So that you can basically do when you are writing your test, because that your body is part of you and you can see and feel how it feels when you inhale. When you exhale, you force air out of the lungs. So the volume of your thoracic cavity will decrease. The diaphragm relaxes, it moves upwards, creating the dome shape again. Intercostal muscles will relax, the rib cage moves down and inwards, and the volume of the chest cavity will then decrease. And that causes the air to be pushed out of the lungs, through the bronchus, through the trachea, and out through the mouth. So have a look. So you'll see the change in the lungs, the change in the diaphragm as well. In this picture, you cannot notice the change in the thoracic cavity. So let's have a look at what is gas exchange. So it can take place at the lungs, and it can also take place at the cells by means of diffusion. So what is diffusion? So diffusion is the movement of a substance, so in this case oxygen and carbon dioxide, from a high concentration to a low concentration until it's evenly spread. So that's how oxygen and carbon dioxide will move into and out of the blood. So when gas exchange takes place within the lungs, it takes place between the alveoli and the blood capillary. So oxygen will move from the alveoli into the blood, where it is transported with a red blood cell, and carbon dioxide moves from the blood into the alveoli. So you'll see the deoxygenated blood coming in, carbon dioxide will move into the alveoli, oxygen moves into the blood, and then deoxygenated blood changes into oxygenated blood, which then gets pumped back to the heart so that it gets transported to the rest of the body. So let's have a look at gas exchange, but at a cellular level. So this takes place between the blood capillary and a body cell. So now blood, oxygenated blood, enters the capillary. Oxygen will move into the body cell as the concentration is very low, and carbon dioxide moves into the blood capillary, creating deoxygenated blood, which is then pumped back to the heart, to the lungs, to pick up more oxygen. So cell respiration is just a recap from grade 8. So this cell respiration occurs within the mitochondria of a cell, so that it releases the chemical energy from glucose, because glucose is used for all the 7 life processes and to keep the cell alive. So let's have a look at some health issues. So the first one we'll be looking at is bronchitis. So this is the swelling of the lining of the bronchi due to infection, which is caused by coughing, and it also makes it difficult to get air into the lungs. And this disease is caused by bacteria. It's easily treatable, as you can just get prescribed antibiotics, but it's very, very important for you to finish your course of antibiotics. Then we have asthma, which is caused by allergies. This causes an inflammation or a narrowing of the airways. And a lot of people do have prescribed inhalers because they have quite severe asthma. Then we also have lung cancer. So this is a disease that's mostly a result of smoking or severe air pollution. So you will notice in the X-ray, in the middle of the X-ray, you will notice the heart, as you will see the left-hand side of the heart, the point of the heart, and then a funny-looking structure on the right-hand side or the left-hand side of my patient, which represents a tumor. Next, we will look at pneumonia, which is an infection of the lung due to a virus. So this is very important, that we cannot prescribe antibiotics for a viral infection, only for a bacterial infection. So pneumonia is caused by a virus. Then we will also look at TB, also known as tuberculosis, which is another bacterial infection. And this is actually caused by a bacteria known as Mycobacterium. And for this, you can prescribe antibiotics as it is a bacterial infection. Someone with TB usually has to take antibiotics for about 3 to 6 months, which is extremely, extremely long. And that is it for my video on the breathing system. Please watch my next videos on the last few body systems.